Start di sudah. Om Swastiastu. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera buat kita semua. Good afternoon, everyone. Firstly, it is my pleasure to welcome you all to our International Summit Leaders and Experts. Today, Friday, June 30th, 2023. Welcome, everyone, again here in Zoom. Thank you for joining us today. We are excited to have you here. This will be an opportunity for us to learn from each other and grow together. And I would like to say the utmost gratitude toward God for letting us together again in today's event with good and stable state of health. I'm Eka Mahadewi, lecturer from Bali Tourism Polytechnic or Poltek Par Bali. I'm as the chairwoman of this International Summit Leaders and Experts, and this event hosted by Dr. Reza Sultani as Director of Institute of Tourism. Special thanks to our Executive Board of Institute of Travel and Tourism, Dr. Talib Rifai, also as a former Secretary General of UNWTO, Mr. Peter Simon from PATA International, Prof. Noel Scott from Sustainability Research Center Australia, Mr. Gary Borman from Check-in Asia Malaysia, and thanks to all speakers today, Mr. Didin Junaidi, represented Ministry of Tourism and Creative Economic of Republic of Indonesia, and Mr. Faisal in Airline Australia, Perfumas, and Dr. Rusmiati from ASITA, Association of Indonesia Travel Agencies.
Thank you.
Nayon, PHRI, Indonesia Hotel Restaurant Association, Dr. Gus Day, NCPI, Nawacita Indonesia Tourism Expert, Prof. Pitana, Udayana University, and also our moderator, Prof. Dina from UPH. It is such an honor to welcome you in this event. Thank you to participants of this International Summit with Leaders and Experts. Indonesia, the Untapped Destination, Discover the Undiscovered. Thanks to participants of the International Summit with the Leaders and Experts, also for thousands of people who are watching this event on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, or website. Our topic today, again, Indonesia Untapped Destination, Discover the Undiscovered. And I would like to remind for all speakers from leaders and experts that this event will be recorded and will be become public consumption related to the Institute of Tourism information. Now our agenda, we have 3 agendas. First agenda, introduction by me as chairman of this International Summit Leaders and Experts. And the second agenda, our moderator, Prof. Dina Mutiara Lemi, will guide us to panel discussion. And then she will guide it also welcoming speech and the presentation from the leaders and experts. And the last session, our agenda is a summary by me and also from the Director of Institute of Tourism, Dr. Reza Sultani. Now we begin our our second agenda. Our moderator, Prof. Dina Mutiara Lemi. Time is yours to lead our discussion today. Thank you very much. Time is yours, Ibu Dina.
Thank you very much, Ibu Eka Mahadewi from Bali. Hello again, everyone, to all speakers and all participants of this very prestigious summit. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, because we come from all over the world. Welcome to the International Summit with Leaders and Experts. This in Indonesia, today is Friday, June 30th, 2023. We have a very intriguing topic today. Indonesia, the untapped destination, discover the undiscovered. Why intriguing? Because many of us, Indonesian tourism experts, we thought we already done so much for Indonesian tourism. Tourism has had a long history of development in Indonesia. And yet, the summit still considered Indonesia as untapped destination. On other words, we can say it is already, but not yet. So, therefore, we are inviting 10 distinguished speakers today to share their thoughts and opinions about Indonesia as a destination. And what do they think about today's topic? So, Ibu Eka already mentioned our speaker today. So, I will just invite our first speaker, Mr. Didin Junaidi. Now he is the Chief Strategic Advisor for Indonesia Tourism Ministry or Kemenparekraf. Mr. Didin Junaidi has a very good reputation in Indonesia's tourism because he had been the former president of Gabungan Industri Pariwisata Indonesia or GIPI for so many years. So without further ado, the time is yours, Pak Didin. And as it is being mentioned, maximum is 7 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, moderator. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon. Greeting to all of us. Shalom. Om Swastiastu. Namo Buddhaya. Salam kebaikan. Praise and gratitude. We always pray to the presence of God Almighty, because blessing and grace we are given that we can attend this international together with the topic Indonesian Untapped Destination Discover, Undiscovered, Friday 30 is June 2023. As we know, we challenge in developing the creative economy now, and as we know, challenge in the developing tourism and the creative economy now and in the future are increasingly complex and dynamic. Climate change and sustainability, security and life safety, economic stability and exchange rate fluctuation, technology advances, regulatory and policy dynamic, behavior change, and over-tourism are issues that need our collective attention. After 3 years suffering COVID-19, now in the pandemic, recently in the already declared as endemic country by the Indonesian government, the success of the government of Indonesia in handling the COVID-19 pandemic has had a profound impact in the movement of the Indonesian economy in a good and true direction, especially with the presence of the program of refining and mining result in an Indonesian success in holding the presidency of the G20 following the improvement and achievement of Indonesian economic recovery and revitalization program. The focus of the restructuring of Indonesian tourism cannot be delayed, even need to move faster given the massive and measurable availability of infrastructure marked by numerous airport and seaport and completed tourism destination, and it's ready to support Indonesian tourism development such as Lake Toba with Silangit Airport, Labuan Bajo with a seaport and international accommodation, Mandalika Circuit with a beautiful view, as well as domestic tourist destinations that are increasingly during pandemic period either in large city of some mountain area or beaches that can be used for camping, hiking, as well as other related activities. International event arrangements such as the MotoGP in Mandalika circuit, power boating at the Lake Toba, music campaign, government event just like G20 and ASEAN Summit, and football event in the fact that the rise of economy and Indonesian tourism has a profound impact and the resulted of the movement of the domestic tourism and international tourism as well of Indonesia. In line with direction of the Minister of Tourism and Creative Economy, the priority for tourism and creative economy development focus on promoting the value of sustainable tourism, human resources, development and community empowerment, holistic tourism experience, route and service diversification, utilization of technology and digitalization and creative economy development. The Ministry of Tourism and Creative Economy encourage the transformation from quality to quality tourism, which prioritize quality of tourism experience, providing added value for job creation, business opportunity, and improving people welfare. Ladies and gentlemen, quality tourism has 4 indicators, namely tourism satisfaction, tourism industry satisfaction, improving the quality of life of local communities, and improving environmentally quality, along with the condition of the tourism sector has increasingly showing positively number. The application of the concept of the quality tourism can become an instrument of the stakeholder in developing inclusive destination governance. In line with the condition in the tourism sector, which are starting to show positive number, the application of the concept of the quality tourism can be an instrument used by stakeholders in the region in developing inclusive tourism destination governance. Quality tourism does not only answer how good tourism quality standard can be realized and developed, but how quality tourism is able to integrate tourism alertments such as attractiveness, accessibility, amenity, governance, activities, services, and security, and health guarantee for the tourist. Therefore, tourism destination continue to be prepared to anticipate risks that may arise at step to overcome them and apply to concept of sustainability tourism. The Ministry of Tourism and Creative Industry welcome and appreciate this activity through this event. It can become a place for all of us to discuss and exchange ideas to strengthen strategies for developing tourism destination in Indonesia to achieve the national target that have been set. 8.5 million foreign tourists and visit, even though we can reach by 10 million foreign tourists in this year. 1.4 billion domestic tourist trip, creation of 22.4 million workers in the tourism sector, creation of 22.59 million workers in the creative sector. To meet this target, various innovative, adaptive, and collaborating steps and breakthrough are needed with other ministry, institution, and all stakeholders with the spirit of 3G, to say in Indonesia, chat, gercep, geber, and gospel, through strategic programs to encourage sustainability, competitiveness, added value, digital transformation, and increased productivity.
Pak Didin,
Several-
I'm sorry, your time is 2 more minutes.
Okay, thank you. The quality and sustainable tourism development and develop a 5 as super priority tourism destination to 10 priority tourism destination with tourism village development. Proud to travel Indonesia, bangga berwisata di Indonesia. Improve upskilling, reskilling, and new skilling program, synergy and collaboration, regional stakeholder, organizing event and MICE. To meet this target, we'll innovate, adaptive, and collaborating steps and breakthrough are needed with the minister institution just now. Indonesia was finally selected as the also executive council of UNWTO for services period 2023 to 2027. Finally, I hope that we all keep our spirit up, and through this webinar, hopefully we can produce positive formulation and recommendation so it can be able to make the potential of tourism and the creative economy in Indonesia as a driving force for economy to improve people welfare. Thank you very much for your attention. Didin Junaidi. My name is Didin Junaidi. I hope you can call me Didin. Chief Strategic Advisor, Minister of Tourism and Creative Economy. Thank you again. Have a good luck.
Thank you very much, Pak Didin, for your introduction and opening for this session. We are going to proceed to our next speaker, Mr. Farshal Hambali. Hello, Pak Farshal. How are you?
Budina, how are you?
He is from Virgin Airline, Australia. He is an experienced manager with a demonstrated history of working in the airlines, aviation, and tourism industry. He has a skill in airlines management, aircraft, airports, aerospace, and airport management. Currently, he holds the position as the Virgin Australia Airline Jakarta Manager Indonesia, as a Vice Chairman, Board of Airline Representative in Indonesia, as a Director of Glory Aviation Services, and the Director for PT Umroh Madani Amanah Jakarta. So, Pak Farshal, the next 8 minutes is yours.
Okay, thank you, Budina, and everyone. Very good afternoon, good morning, and good evening if you are in the southern part of the world. So I'm very pleased to be here in this forum, and look forward to exchange ideas and look forward to any possible cooperation. And I'm very pleased to be here with you, Ibu Dina. Ibu Dina is my professor in the uni, so everyone. Ibu Dina is my professor, so I'm very, very pleased to be here with you, Ibu Dina, in this forum.
Thank you.
So I am representing two bodies. Number one is the Board of Airline Representative Indonesia. We call it Barindo. And also, I am the country manager for Virgin Australia. With Barindo, just to highlight what we are doing, Barindo, we have 37 members of airlines flying international from Indonesia to the world. Yeah, we have members from Asia, we have members from Australia, Middle East, Europe, and of course China. Our members are we have full service airline member, we have low cost airline member, so we have a very broadened membership. Now, pre-COVID or before COVID, we contribute to around 90% of international visitors to Indonesia. At that time, there were about 40 million incoming international traffic to Indonesia, and 90% of them are from Barindo members. In 2002, post-COVID, that 40 million become only 12 million in 2022. Yeah, so we are still struggling to rebound the air travel sector. Our industry, ladies and gentlemen, is very dynamic, very robust. Our industry is not designed to stop. But what happened during COVID, we are almost stopped. So we need time to reignite this industry. Yeah. We are working together with the government, with the stakeholder, to make sure that we have a speedy return of air travel. Yeah. If it's not next year, hopefully in 2025. Yeah. But we are on the way there, and we are very confident that we could back to the pre-COVID and maybe beyond that. We are also in Barindo promoting other destination because at the moment international traffic is only focused between Jakarta and Bali. Yeah, some Lombok, some Surabaya, and some Medan. But the big portion is really Jakarta and Bali. So what we are doing, we are really promoting direct flights to other destinations now, like a theme of this forum, which is to untap more destination in Indonesia. Recently, we're promoting Lombok very much. And also a couple of weeks ago, we went to Balikpapan. Why Balikpapan? Because Balikpapan is the gateway for our new capital city. Yeah, we are trying to promote direct flights to Balikpapan. Now, with Virgin Australia, this is the company that I work with. So Virgin has been flying to Bali since 2008. We are a dominant airline from Australia to Bali. At the moment, we are flying 6 flights a day from 5 cities. Business is very good. Demand is very strong, very solid for Bali. We are very pleased. And load factor about 87%, so very good. We are, we are looking forward to have more flights. Yeah, but again, we are trying to see other destination than Bali. Yeah. Now, based on the theme of this forum, this webinar to untapped destinations, yeah, I think we are completely agree with one of the main factors in developing tourism is the connectivity. Sorry, it's in the tourism definition will be accessibility. Yeah, but in our world we call it air connectivity. Yeah. So what we see in the future or in the near future, this is something that we need to develop more. Yeah. Indonesia have lots to offer. We have everything for everyone. But I think the air connectivity needs major improvement. We are only, I think before COVID, we are only about, I don't know, maybe 15 million tourists per year, while Singapore is 20 million. Malaysia is 25, 30 million, and Thailand beyond that. Yeah, I think it's because they are very good in air connectivity, which we are lack of. Yeah. So going forward, one of the key factors to untap more destinations in Indonesia is to have more air connectivity, not just Jakarta, not just Bali. Yeah, so what we want to open, for example, Medan, we have Toba there. Manado, we see Manado is going to be more popular for Chinese and Korean market. So in the near future, Manado, I think, will be more popular. Lombok, Lombok is very good. The infrastructure is there. I think it has, it has the right offer for any tourist. Yeah. So really, we are looking forward to work with you, to work with the government, to work with the stakeholder, how we can offer more air connectivity in the future. I think that's all from me, Budina. I'm sorry, I don't have any presentation or slides or anything because it's a last minute notification. Thank you, Budina, and thank you, everyone.
Oh, thank you. Pa Farshal, you still have 1 minute and 30 seconds actually. So it can be used for other speakers, I think. So thank you for your sharing your thoughts about the Indonesia as an Untapped destination. Well, we're going to proceed to our third speakers, Dr. Gusde Sutawa. Hello, Pak Sutawa, how are you?
Fine, thank you, Prof. Diana.
So we meet here, Pak Sutawa, not in our class.
Yeah.
Well, Dr. Gusde Sutawa is the president of Nawacita Pariwisata Indonesia. He is also a lecturer at International Institute of Tourism and Business, Bali. Today, he is also holding the position as the chairman of Bali Tourism Community Alliance and member of tourism expert team of Bali province. His experience and expertise in tourism is very well known, not only in Bali, but also in Indonesia. So, Pak Sutawa or Gusde, the next 8 minutes, it's yours.
Thank you,
Please.
Prof. Diana. Oh, is it clear?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
It's clear, eh? Okay, thank you, Prof. Diana, and my respect to all speakers. It's very glad for me to be here today with all the famous and professional speaker of tourism. In the second webinar, because this is second time I joined this webinar, so I present the sustainable Indonesian tourism. As we all know that now the tourism, all the countries are concerned about the sustainable tourism development. As mentioned by Pak Junaidi, sustainability means socio-cultural continuity, economic continuity, and ecological sustainability. This is the main product of Indonesian tourism, according to the Riparnas, so Indonesian planning for Indonesian tourism. It's nature 35%, culture 60%, man-made 5%. So Indonesia very concerned with the culture as tourism base. Cultural tourism of Indonesia is in accordance with the mandate law number 10 of 2009 concerning tourism, where in its consideration, it is stated that one of the resources and capital for Indonesia's tourism development is art and culture, other than nature, flora, fauna, ancient relic, and historical relics. Cultural tourism, the various of cultural object of tourism according to the research of Mr. Ardika, Professor in 2004 is archaeological, architecture, art, sculpture, music, drama, language, literature, religious ceremony, traditional culture, etc. Indonesian tourism update. Now the number of foreign tourists visit to Indonesia in the year 2022 is 5.47 million, up 251.28% compared to the number of foreign tourists visit in year 2021. This one, is put it. It's the number. So the English. The target for foreign tourist arrival in year 2023 is 7.4 million. The government want to increase the target for foreign tourist arrival to 8.5 million, already mentioned by Pak Junaidi just now. 92 countries already have visa on arrival at the moment. So this is the input from tourism stakeholder for development of Indonesian tourism. Number one, tourism master plan or blueprint for all provinces in Indonesia should be made. Number two, the central government must be consistent and focus on cultural tourism as an icon in developing Indonesian tourism. And then the third one, the concept of national tourism is needed as practiced by former tourism minister Gede Ardika. So called Indonesia is concept kepariwisataan nasional. Number four, state companies or state-owned enterprises that manage companies in tourism sector to involve tourism professional to become directors to ensure management is carried out in professional manner. Yeah, like Pak Junaidi already in, that's good. The ministry, number five, the Ministry of Tourism and Creative Economy to recruit more professional tourism experts to join the team. This is the stakeholder involvement in developing sustainable tourism. So everyone in this forum, I think, knows on this. Private sector, government, academician, media, local community, NGOs should be together to develop, to manage the tourism in Indonesia. So this is the local regulations supporting sustainable tourism. Example of Bali Island. Regulation such as the example below should also be and implemented in all provinces in Indonesia if possible. Number one, single-use plastic disposal restriction. The use of traditional clothing, the standard of implementing Balinese culture tourism, Bali tourism governance, and then marketing and utilization of agriculture, fishery, and local industrial product, organic farming system, contribution, tourist protection of natural environment and culture, source-based waste management, protection of lakes, spring, river, and seas. And then how to make tourist destination in Indonesia become tourist destination that are in demand by foreign tourists and can be sustainable. Number one, consistent with cultural tourism as an icon. Cultural uniqueness that is diverse and different in all regions in Indonesia continues to be preserved and developed to become a tourist attraction and promoted to foreign countries. Indonesia's tourism promotion budget must be increased because it is still small if compared with other nearby country like Malaysia. 400 billion per year is I think small. Even Bali, I asked the tourism authority, is only 300 million a year. Compared to Malaysia, they budgeted about 1.2 billion. Promotion is still very important. The third one, the government need to involve all tourism stakeholders, including airline, hotel, travel agent, academic, tourism leader, the media, and other tourism actors in planning, developing, and managing tourism.
Okay, the time is up, Gusde, I'm sorry.
To form the Indonesian Tourism Board, this is just the suggestion, which is filled by representative of all existing tourism associations and figures who are tourism expert and government representative. This is necessary so that every decision taken is the result of the decision made by government and industry, so that the result can be accepted by all parties. So the time is finished. So the conclusion,
Yes, Gusde.
conclusion? 1 minute.
Okay.
To ensure sustainability of tourism, Indonesia requires synergy between government and all stakeholders. Indonesia has 1,340 ethnic groups and 7,241 cultural works. With the many cultures that Indonesia has, and each culture is unique, Indonesia will become a favorite tourist destination in the world if it makes culture as a tourism icon. Indonesia tourism will be sustainable if it is pay attention and maintain and the environment, socio-culture, and welfare of the community where tourism is developed. With the many violations by foreign tourists in Bali lately, both regarding custom, Balinese culture, private visiting, the government has issued the circular for foreign tourists while in Bali. I hope after that circular is enacted, it can be suppress violation from foreign tourists while in Bali. That's only example, but also can be valid, can be done in all over Indonesia. Thank you, Prof. Diana. Sorry.
Thank you, Pak Dr. Gusde Sutawa, for your reminder about us about law enforcement in the implementation of sustainable tourism. So we have the next distinguished speaker, Dr. Rusmiati from ASITA. ASITA is a very strategic tourism association in Indonesia. It is the association of the Indonesian Tours and Travel Agency. And Dr. Rusmiati also have a very long, reputable experience in Indonesia tourism industry. And in her presentation, she will also presenting the video from Sumba Tourism Authority. So Dr. Rusmiati, the time is yours.
Great, thanks Miss Dina. Oke, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Om Swastiastu, salam sejahtera untuk kita semua. The Honorable Mr. and Mrs. Speaker, Leader, Expert, all participants who have attended virtually. Thank you once again. I'm very appreciative for this event. Okay, so next, I want to introduce myself. What Mr. Dina said, I'm the president of ASITA, Association of the Indonesia Tour and Travel Agencies, established in 1971. Active members, you can imagine 7,000 tour and travel agencies, led by 30 provincial head and 50 region head in every province in Indonesia. Next. There is a glamour and city and natural both land and the sea, hiding Indonesia colorful heritage. Indonesia ranked the first in the world of the largest coastline covered at 54.72 thousand kilometers. Within these coastlines are miles upon miles of beautiful beaches incomparable with the rest of the world. And you will be surprised how it's gorgeous beaches. Indonesia is also rich in biodiversity, historical, architecture, and culture. Okay, you can see this is 4 million 2020. So more than 4 million tourists flock to the many islands of Indonesia to experience the culture based on nature and have some well-needed rest on relaxation. And then also you can see 18 million free COVID-19, more than 15 million visitor arrival were recorded from 2018, higher than the Southeast Asia average of 13 million. And then you can see also 547 million foreign visitor arrival are increasing since COVID-19 because we were hard, especially Asita, with 5.47 million tourists entering Indonesia in 2020, 2022, compared to the 1.560 tourist arrival to the year before. And then the spend 737 visitor in 2020 spent 737 US during their trip. And then you can see 2.93 night international tourist stay in average of 2.30 night in 2020. Bali is the island of Bali top the list most visited island in Indonesia in 2019, with Rio Island close second, totally 20.5 million and 2.3 million tourists arrival respectively. 87% most recently in the country declared themselves Muslim. Next. It is, yes, next. Yeah, this is already explained what I say before. Next. Next. Yes. You can see number of commercial tourist attraction business in Indonesia 2021. The number of tourist attraction business in Indonesia from 2018 to 2019 has decreased from 2.896 to 2.945 businesses. However, in March 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic began in Indonesia. The COVID-19 pandemic that has occurred in the world has had a free impact, including the tourism sector. It is an object of tourism attraction business have decreased because many have closed in 2020. Objective of tourist attraction business have decreased in number of business to reach 2.552 business, or down 13.34% from 2019. Then next. This is the president, our president. I'm very glad for our president because he care also for tourism. Right now we have a lot of destination, but we choose 5 Indonesian destination to visit in 2023. One is Borobudur in Central Java, Mandalika West Nusa Tenggara, Labuan Bajo in Nusa Tenggara, Lake Toba, North Sumatra, and then one Likupang, North Sulawesi. Next. And then, I'm also glad to Millennial Indonesian Attraction 2023. So right now we say bangga di Indonesia saja. We tourist to the Indonesia only. We have choose like Pulau Tajukang in Makassar, Taman Safari Solo, Rengganis Suspension Bridge West Java, and then Beijing Guang Hidden Canyon in Bali, Bukit Kubu, Brastagi, North Sumatra, and then Taman Nasional Teluk Cendrawasih, Papua. In fact, it is only what I really researched, but in fact, so many, what I said, the destination is very wonderful. Next. And then we know ASITA members again is 7,000 travel agencies. We sell also attraction, accommodation, transportation, resto, insurance, and etc. And our client is individual, corporate, employee, and businessman. Also for your information, ASITA member, it is we have only corporate, like what I said, also inbound, outbound, HUTs, MICE, even organizer. So it is very huge, our team. Okay, next. Conclusion, Indonesia has everything you need for perfect summer vacation. This equatorial jewel will not only leave you refreshed, but even realize after spending some time in the country's spiritual nature. For your next holiday destination, take your pick up of the amazing island around in Indonesia. And don't forget, make sure to book your private tour with our member of ASITA in advance to ensure we can provide it to the best service on your desired travel dates. That's all.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you. And then, thank you. If you don't mind, we will show the best destination 3-minute video about Sumba. Okay, thank you.
The sound is not included.
Oh, sorry. In fact, I will check.
Or Dr. Rusmiati, perhaps you can explain about the video because we cannot hear the sound.
Doctor, unmute yourself. We cannot hear you. We cannot hear you. Please unmute yourself.
Sorry, from Sumba will
Yeah.
explain. Pak, can you explain for this video? Pak, because there is have the,
Okay.
okay.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
No,
Good afternoon.
go ahead, go ahead.
My name is Yudi Kumbu from Tourism Department in East Sumba Regency. We are staying in Sumba Island. We're talking about the visual video that we have is Sumba travel pattern, and then calendar of events. Talking about Sumba, the Sumba residence is a sorted name, and we have a logo for the island of Sumba, namely Sumba Tourism Board. So among them of the readiness of Sumba Regency, informing we have 3 night and 4 days tour package from 2013, and the calendar events of Sumba Tourism. It's a unique and characteristic. Now that is principal empowerment and development of tourism objects, both natural and cultural and marine. This is from the gratitude to God for creating the most beautiful and amazing thing in Isumba Regency. Besides that, it's also a form of gratitude in the ancestors who have initiated and passed down from the custom and culture. This perfection is reflected in the ikat and songkat fabrics, which are naturally processed and then have a unique design and grit and noble values. These traditional fabrics are able to pull museum abroad and pursued by collection of the traditional fabrics. The traditional movement cloth in Isumba was created and dedicated souls in the order of strong culture, which are passed down through oral tradition and preserve the whole soul and spirit. And Isumba has Isumba has so many stories and charm, both the natural and cultural. The nature of Isumba domain the savanna fields. There are cattle and graze with oases and rivers in the valley. Uh, the beaches is white sand with the blue sea. Isumba is moving to improve gardening to the era of globalization by reflecting on the greatness of the Marapu civilization, which have been passed down and for generation to generation in various rituals, traditional beliefs, teachings, and life ethics.
Thank you, Pak.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for
Thank
the
you.
explanation about Sumba, a real untapped destination from Indonesia, the hidden gems from Indonesia. Okay, thank you, Dr. Rusmiati
you're right.
and Bapak Yudi Umbu.
Yes.
We have to move forward to our
Thank you.
next speaker, Mr. Alexander Nayawan from PHRI, one of another strategic association in Indonesia for hotel and restaurant sector. So Mr. Alexander Nayawan have a long reputation and long experience in hospitality and hotel industry in Indonesia, especially in the human resources management. So today we are going to hear his thoughts and ideas about Indonesia as an untapped destination, discover, undiscovered. Please, Mr. Nayawan, the next 7 minutes is yours.
Okay. Good afternoon, ladies, gentlemen. Thank you very much for the time. Thank you for inviting Pak Haryadi Sukamdani, the chairman of PHRI, who cannot come. So I'm here to represent him. So today I'm going to talk more about the maritime and coastal tourism. Next, please. My my presentation is quite long, so I'll make it quite quick. Yeah. First page is basically talking about Indonesian untapped destination and discover and undiscovered, which I don't think I need to talk. Everyone understands quite well that we have in Indonesia right now 4 A's, which is attraction, accessibility, amenities, and ancillary that we have to focus on. And the most important strategy is actually safety, health, and measure. Yeah, and last is nature-based tourism. Next. Indonesia has a vast location or destination to visit throughout Indonesia. So here is just a sample. Next. And this is again the number of census and development index of people within Indonesia. Next. And the increase of tourism in Indonesia, including the economy increment until first quarter this year. Next. And we have in Indonesia 20 distribution KEK, whereas from those 20, only 10 are actually for tourism, yeah, which is good, but also sad, but it can be improved in the future. Next. I'm going fast so that I can go directly to the marine and coastal tourism, which should be a focus, because that is one thing which is not developed properly, and which will actually help. If you see underneath here, the revenge tourism, people are actually right now trying to go on holidays as much as they can, because 3 years they haven't gone for a proper holiday or exploration or getting experience within Indonesia or overseas. Next. Now, right now, this is from the Ministry of Tourism. People are ending their ambition, to work at home. So they prefer to work outside their offices, at home or while on holiday. And they embellished escapism, the desire for tourists to go for unique vacation experience. So it is now the time to actually develop more destination which has not been tapped before. And people are always in doubt, where they always think whether the destination, the hotel is right or not, especially that we are now able to read other people's comments easily. And they go for polycentric lifestyle, which is again, the desire for tourists to find a uniqueness and attractiveness of each area to be visited. Next. So Indonesia has around 7,275 desa wisata, which is villages, tourism villages. Next. Now, this, if we combine with the 10 Indonesian priority tourism destination and the 5 destination, super priority Indonesian destination, next, it will be really great. So hence, I'm here on this slide showing you that 17,640 island on an area of almost 2 million square kilometers, and with almost 100,000 kilometers of coastal beach, which actually account to 1/3 of Indonesia. We have the capacity and we have the power of actually improving, expanding into the maritime tourism. Yeah, there is a strong, number one, if you see here, demand for luxury tourism experience. Even though maybe in Europe or in other countries, their purchasing power is down, but there are still around 20% of the purchasing power which can actually buy expensive holidays, which is usually on the beach, on boats, on yacht, on cruises. Yeah. And investors are willing to do that, if all the infrastructure and then the government regulation supports. Yeah. So on the other hand, desa wisata is also very good if you combine with maritime tourism. with the assumption that investors value sustainability, community engagement, and cultural preservation, and also to have authentic and immersive cultural experience, and the willingness of investor to support and empower local community, including to show cultural heritage, yeah, to improve the desa wisata concept. Now, if these two tourism, yeah, because desa wisata is one kind of tourism which is growing and which is very much liked by the Indonesian right now, yeah. They combined with the maritime tourism, this will be a very good possibility and a very good potential for Indonesia in the next 10 years. Next, please. Yeah. So
1 more minute, Mr.
Oh,
Nayuan.
1 more minute, sure. So basically, we need to build more marinas. We have to build hotels in various locations around all the islands of Indonesia. Yeah, and most preferably is to start training the hospitality, the talents of people in all the islands to support later on the maritime and coastal tourism, because coastal and maritime tourism can actually develop and gain more revenue or foreign currency if done properly compared to oil industry. Next. So beach development is very important here. Yeah, capacity building again is very important, you know. And for this, infrastructure is the focal point for government, and especially to ease all the government regulation, to make it easy for ships, yacht, and everything to come to Indonesia much easier, and to bring foreign currency to all the area, especially in the northern part, eastern part of Indonesia, where they need more tourists to be there. It might conflict with the environment, but with the Department of KLH, I'm very sure that can be solved and treated well. But we in Indonesia, we need to push on this maritime tourism so that it's not only on the land that we prosper, but also beaches and coastal around Indonesia. These are then some issues that we have to do, is to increase small airports around Indonesia, simplify permits, decides on location of marinas, and quick built hotels, you know, prefab hotels, which is available and already done in Indonesia in many places. This can then, within 5 to 10 years, Indonesia will prosper from this maritime tourism. I think I meet the 7 minutes, Professor Dina.
Yeah. Yes.
So thank you very much, and I hope we can push and make an FGD for maritime tourism in very soon. I spoke with the Ministry of Tourism, and they are very, very much into this. It's just when to start and to get it done. Thank you for listening, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Nayuan, for the thoughts about marine and coastal tourism in Indonesia. Let's proceed to our next speaker, Professor Pitana. He is the first professor of tourism of Indonesia from Udayana University. I may call him one of Indonesia's tourism guru. And Prof. Pitana himself in Indonesia's tourism has held various positions Some of them are as Deputy Minister for International Marketing, Ministry of Tourism, Republic of Indonesia, Deputy Minister for Resource Development, and also Acting Director General of Culture, History, and Heritage. Now, Professor Pitana also holds a religious role as a Pandita in Hindu religion. So without further ado, Prof. Pitana, the next 8 minutes is yours.
Thank you,
Pitana. Yeah.
Professor Dina, and thank you for pulling my leg. I appreciate that. First of all, I would like to thank also Dr. Eka Mahadewi for inviting me in this very, very prestigious webinar. And ladies and gentlemen, when we talk about Indonesia Untapped destination, discover the undiscovered, my answer would be rural tourism. These conclusions come after considering a number of issues, a number of trends, a number of factors, and also projected future issues on Indonesian tourism. Why this come into conclusion? Because we all know Indonesia is very rich with rurality, which is mentioned before by Pa Alex Nayawam. Thank you, Pa Alex. I subscribe your ideas and thank you for put forward also number of problems faced by Indonesia. Well, when we talk about rural tourism in Indonesia, the variety is very, very wide range, whether it is from nature point of view, from culture, as well as from man-made cultural activities. When we talk about rurality or village in Indonesia, as I mentioned before, the range is so wide. It starts from, so to say, Stone Age culture in some village, up to modern globalized culture, yet still traditional, as we can see in Ubud or other part of villages in Bali. Because of the richness, then rurality in Bali can offer anything needs and wanted by tourists. Well, if we back to the theory, if we talk about the level of consumption of tourists, rurality in Indonesia can offer various level of tourist consumption, start from merely enjoyment, come to experience, up to engagement. Anything, enjoyment, experience, and engagement can be felt in rurality of Indonesia with a wide range of level of consumption, wide range of activities, you name it. However, as mentioned before by Pa Alex, there are problems in developing Indonesian tourism, especially village tourism or rural tourism, associated with the 4A before, attraction, amenities, and so forth and so forth. However, aside from physical 4A, I find out one of the weakest points in developing Indonesian tourism, especially in rural tourism, is the weakness in storytelling. Wherever we go, the attraction, the object gazed by a tourist, nearly all blind, all without any interpretation, no storytelling. While we know, when we talk about tourism, it is about storytelling, not the thing we see, but the story we hear and we think. And also, when we talk about rural tourism in Indonesia, mentioned before by Pak Alex, we have around 2,000 desa wisata. Most of the desa wisata is developing itself without any networking with others. And marketing is also very weak. So amidst the uniqueness and authenticity we have in every village, in every rurality, this challenge, storytelling, marketing, and networking are really a big, big problem. Because of the time, I don't want to be noticed by Ibu Dena. I come to what next? After considering a number of problems, a number of issues, a number of factors, and also the projected future issues, my conclusion is simple. If we want to develop Indonesia, if we want to discover the undiscovered, the answer is rural tourism, associated also with village tourism. Why so? Because the richness of natural, cultural, and man-made based resources are really, really amazing in Indonesia. However, what we need, again, I agree with Dr. Kade Sutawa before, what we need is integrated development and also connecting among villages, connecting among rurality, and in developing the rural tourism, we cannot develop individual village, individual rurality. Connectivity, whether physical or non-physical, with other villages of the same nature, of different varieties, are really in need. Thank you, Ibu Dina. I don't want to consume so much time. I spent only 6.2 minutes. Thank you. The time I return back to you.
Thank you, Prof. Pitana. Indeed, you still have time actually. So it is very interesting. The sleeping giant of Indonesia, rural tourism. Okay, let's proceed to our next distinguished speaker, Dr. Talib Rifai from UNWTO. Dr. Talib Rifai was elected as the Secretary General of the World Tourism Organization at the General Assembly in Astana, Kazakhstan, held in October 2009, at which time he began his 4-year term on January 1st, 2010. Mr. Rifai has an extensive background in international and national public service, the private sector, and academia. He has a PhD in urban design and regional planning from the University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia, an MA in engineering and architecture from the Illinois Institute of Technology in Chicago, and BSc in architectural engineering from the University Cairo in Egypt. So, Dr. Talib Rifai, the next 8 minutes is yours.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you, Madam. I want to thank everybody that participated in this, particularly Mr. Rida and all the good speakers. I think in Indonesia you have not undiscovered, untapped destination. Your destination is very well developed. It's developed because of two things. One is the fact that the government is very much behind tourism. Tourism is not seen as a serious sector in many countries around the world, but in Indonesia it is. And I think you have done a lot of work to support this. Now, I've heard a lot about coastal and maritime tourism and cultural tourism. I'm all for cultural tourism. Culture is very, very important to any destination. Anybody that comes to visit Indonesia must change according to the culture and adapt to it and learn from the Indonesians instead of having us change to please the visitors. Visitors must change to please us. I was very happy to see in Bali that there are some regulations concern the respect of local culture and not to come and expect to be treated like king on earth. This is very important because Indonesia is a very rich country and it has a lot to do with the government support of this country, tourism. Now, I was very happy to hear the name Erdika mentioned by one of the speakers, the second speaker, I think, because Erdika is a person I respected very much. I knew him a long time ago. I've been to Indonesia several times. Indonesia is a wonderful place. And I think that we should all go to Indonesia. You know, the difference between Indonesia and many other destinations around the world is the fact that Indonesia is a very developed destination, but it's not very well seen around the world. Because in Europe, you have many destinations that are very famous now. There are lots of visitors come to France and to Spain, for example. France is number 1 in the world. Spain is number 3 in the world. But the fact is that they don't do as much as Indonesia did to promote themselves. They are already promoted because they are in Europe. You are not in Europe, fortunately. You're in East Asia. Now, this is an important factor because what matters here is the fact that many countries around the world find it difficult to connect to Indonesia. And this is why the airline connection is very, very important. Now, you have 2 very good markets near you, markets that are international markets. China and Japan are very big markets around the world. There are many Chinese that travel the world. They should come to Indonesia first. Indonesia is their backyard. I think that Indonesia has done lots of good work, and it needs to just simply continue to do the good work and promote itself, because the promotion of a country and a destination is very, very important here. I think that's what I want to say for the time being. Thank you so much, madam. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dr. Taleb Rifai, for your very brief sharing about Indonesia. I take notes here that you think Indonesia is not underdeveloped, but actually it is well developed because the government is serious about it. And we have to do more regarding promotion and connectivity. We're going to discuss more about it, but we have to proceed to our other distinguished speaker, Mr. Peter Simone from PATA. Mr. Simone is a leading tourism expert in Asia and Pacific. Over the past 4.5 years, Peter served as chief of party of the USAID funded tourism for all projects in Timor-Leste. The 15 million project has improved the business enabling environment for micro and small enterprises, established a pipeline of tourism-related public-private partnership, formed 4 tourism associations, implemented a successful domestic tourism campaign to counter the negative effect of COVID-19. Peter was recently elected chairman of the Pacific Asia Travel Association, or PATA, for the period of 2022-2024. Over more than 20 years of engagement with PATA, Peter has served in a variety of leadership roles. He is widely published in peer-reviewed journals on topics related to tourism development and destination human capital. So, Mr. Simone, the next 7 minutes is yours.
Thank you, Dina, and thank you also, Reza, for the invitation to speak today. On behalf of PATA, I'm glad to be able to see everybody. Albeit I am lily white, I'm actually I consider myself to be an Indonesian in many ways because I first came to Indonesia in 1989. And since I've had a long relationship with Indonesia. I'm married to an Indonesian and have spent many years here. I'm going to try to throw out a couple of provocative comments that I sort of wrote as we were listening to things, and in no particular order. I think the first thing is Indonesia is too big to promote as a destination. Indonesia needs to be divided into sub brands, in my opinion. And I'll give you an example. When the average tourist arrives in Bali, and I run into tourists all the time here in Bali, they're always surprised, and they ask me sometimes, why did I get a stamp for Indonesia when I've come to Bali? And it's very interesting to recognize the fact that a lot of people that do come to Bali, they have no idea that it's part of Indonesia. And I think if we look at the tourism statistics for Indonesia, it's quite clear that there's two predominant destinations, which probably take up almost 60% of all of the international arrivals for Indonesia, and that's Bali and Riau. For Riau, obviously, the key source market is Singapore, and for Bali, yes, predominantly Australian, but there's a good mix of other nationalities that come in there. I remember when I first came to Bali that we used to always beg and plead with Jakarta that the flights would come directly to Bali and not fly through Jakarta. Now that whole scenario's changed. So I think that Bali really presents a great example of how you can create a sub-brand within Indonesia. And I think actually Bali is a victim of its own success. And as I travel around Bali, I'm always frustrated by the traffic. I'm frustrated by the over-tourism. And there's no question in my mind that Indonesia desperately needs to save Bali by trying to disperse tourism to other parts of the country. But again, that's going to have to be done through sub-brands. I also wanted to make clear what I see as a existential threat for tourism in the future. And I think that Indonesia, in particular, because it is such a coastal country, I'm concerned about the future of tourism and whether or not in 10 or 15 years, if we continue at the pace we were at pre-COVID, that we'll actually survive as an industry. And I think that part of the flaw comes from over the years, we've spent too much time marketing and not enough time managing our destinations. And I think that we need to learn the lessons that were presented from COVID. And I sometimes, again, talk to my Balinese friends and they all say how wonderful it was when there were no tourists. So indeed, we need tourists for economic purposes to pay off investments and the rest of it. But it is really high time that we start to think more about management. How are we going to measure success? If we continue to use our 1970s metrics of tourism success, which is number of arrivals, per diem stay, and length of per diem expenditure and length of stay, it is such a basic and really unscientific way of measuring tourism. I think that we need to do a massive rethink, and I want to shift this around again because I know we want to talk about Indonesia. I think there's a wonderful opportunity for Indonesia to take a lead in sustainable tourism. But sustainable tourism is not just about talking about sustainable tourism. It's about actually having an actionable way of rethinking tourism and rethinking how tourism success is measured. Coming back to Bali, and Bali, I think, is a great laboratory of research for looking at how to expand the rest of tourism throughout the rest of Indonesia, because Bali really has the good, the bad, and the ugly of tourism. But one of the things that allows a place like Bali to survive is actually the philosophy of Trihita Karana. And Trihita Karana, which is this belief by the Balinese in the gods, fellow mankind, and nature, is really, can be synchronized very well into sustainability. And so I think that there's a really great opportunity to start to think a bit deeper about the cost of tourism. There's a concept called invisible burden of tourism. And I think that we need to actually do an accounting of our tourism, because sometimes we just throw out big numbers and we say, oh, in Indonesia, we earned $5 billion. Did we really earn $5 billion? When you take out all of the expenses that it took to serve the tourists, the 5 million or the 10 million tourists, plus, might I say, the 1.4 billion domestic tourists, How much money do we have to spend to support that? And I think one of the things that I'm very proud or very impressed with Indonesia, and I know it's very painful, but the example of Komodo Island. Finally, it was decided that this place is not sustainable if we continue to allow tourists to come in and not pay the right of entry for the cost of the commons. So I really do believe that there's an opportunity for Indonesia to take a lead in terms of sustainability, but it has to go much deeper than basically just saying, we believe that sustainability is important. It has to go much deeper, and it has to represent a scientific approach. And I think there's so many smart people in Indonesia. Let's use Bali as the incubator. Let's look at how do we measure the cost of tourism? What's the real cost? How do we identify then what are going to be the success factors? Dina, I've got lots of other notes, but I'm sure that do I have any time left?
1 minute.
1 minute. I wanted to say that I was in Cambodia when Indonesia was selected to the Executive Council for the UNWTO, and I wrote to the minister and a number of the other representatives of the Indonesian government that were there, and I said that this is a wonderful opportunity to show the leadership not only of Indonesia, but of Asia. I do believe that as we go into the future, Asia has such a great opportunity to really lead tourism into a new vision, to rethink tourism. We don't have a lot of the baggage that maybe some of the European, North American destinations have. So we're still agile, and we're still able to maybe recreate ourselves and to really redefine how we're going to measure success. So again, I think Indonesia has great opportunity. I think it's too big to look as a single destination. It needs to be broken down. And one final thing that I wanted to mention, when I was working in Timor-Leste, a small example, we always wanted to communicate and partner with the west side of the island of Timor. And so, for example, were you to take Timor-Leste and Tete and bring them together and say, come visit Timor, one island, two nations, that's an example of how you can start to create these sub-brands. Anyhow, Dina, as you know, I can go on forever. I've probably thrown out way too much, but I guess that's my job, is to share some ideas for further discussion. Thank you so much to you and Reza and everybody else for the opportunity to share my ideas. Thank you.
Thank you for the very provoking thoughts, Mr. Sibon. So what I really got is, let's save the tourism by start managing it, not only promoting it, and use new indicators, not the old indicators that we are using in the 1970s. Okay. We can discuss later. I think there will be a lot of participants who wants to discuss about this. We are proceeding to our next distinguished speaker, Professor Noel Scott from Research Center, Australia. Professor Noel Scott is an adjunct professor of Tourism Management Sustainability Research Center of University of the Sunshine Coast, Australia. And he is also the adjunct professor for Edith Cowan University, Australia, and University of Mataram, Lombok, Indonesia. He has worked as tourism consultant and academic researcher for 26 years and led research and consulting projects in sustainable tourism, tourism branding, destination management, tourism product and experience design, and China tourism. International clients included UNWTO, OECD, ASEAN, Australian Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, Australia Awards Indonesia and Sri Lanka, and Government of Fiji. Prior to starting his academic career in 2001, he was a senior manager in a variety of leading businesses, including Tourism and Events, Queensland. Professor Scott, the time is yours for the next 8 minutes.
Thank you, Dina. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, clear.
Great. Okay, well, hello from China. I'm in Chengdu today, and it's a warm day, but I'm I'm very pleased to talk to many of my friends again in Indonesia. For those who don't know me, and I apologize for that long introduction, I think I've used most of my time most of my 8 minutes in my introduction, but I have been in Indonesia many times. Most recently, over the past decade, I suppose, working with the Australian government on the Australia Awards Indonesia short courses that we've been running. And they have been wonderful for me because they've given me a real opportunity to explore some of these untapped destinations that we're talking about. So if I talk to you and if I say things like Papua, Kalimantan, we've seen some videos from Sumbawa, Sulawesi, Ternate. There's many untapped destinations in Indonesia. So and luckily, or well, after COVID, so we have got a sort of a slower climb back from COVID. So probably by 2025, we're going to have quite a good recovery. The market has changed a little bit, but I still think that there is this desire to experience nature and also to see authentic culture. So the idea of visiting untapped, less developed destinations meets the market. There are problems. Problems, as we've heard about today, include aviation access and accessibility generally. But the Indonesian government's been doing a lot in terms of developing major infrastructure projects in a number of destinations in Indonesia, in Labuan Bajo, in Lombok, in Lake Toba, and so on and so on and so on. So there's quite a lot of infrastructure going in there. There is demand. What can we do to improve the situation? Well, one of the things that I think in Indonesia and in fact many countries is, as Peter Simone was saying, there are many destinations that are developing. So it used to be that people would go to Thailand and they would go to Bangkok. Now they can go to Chiang Mai, Chiang Rai, Phuket, etc., etc. The number of destinations is increasing. Indonesia's sort of going down that track. The problem is that there's infrastructure that's needed. I would call it soft infrastructure rather than hard infrastructure. So by this I mean the organizational networks. One of our previous speakers talked about networks, businesses working together, villages working together. I don't think Indonesia at the moment has got its destination management organizations well focused. I think that at a central level, you've got good coordination, you've got provincial government, but when you come down to perhaps a local level, you start to run out of skills. The people who are there working hard, but perhaps because these are new destinations, because there are places where we are developing tourism, some of the skills that are needed, such as marketing skills, training, product development, those type of skills are they require reasonable sophistication and experience. And at the moment, in many of these less developed destinations, those skills aren't as well developed as they could be. So skill development is one major issue. And particularly, I want to point to something which is a bit of annoying to me, but part of Indonesian life. If you're in the government and you're involved in tourism, you might be working in the tourism industry for 3 years as a promotion manager, and then your next job might be in agriculture, or it might be in a different part of the government. That means that the people in the local government or in the governments in tourism do not have time to develop the expertise that they need. That's an example for me of soft infrastructure which could be developed. There are ways around this by developing, as they probably do in Bali, public-private partnerships and expertise in tourism. But that's the sort of stuff that you need in many of the developing destinations in Indonesia. So skill development, especially in terms of management, and finding good staff who you can keep. A second thing that I wanted to talk about is and again, this is a fairly specific thing, but one of the previous speakers talked about marine, coastal and marine tourism. You know, as an example of how there's resources already available, but they're not being well used. If I want to travel to Sulawesi from Jakarta, I can do that using a ferry. And people have told me that there are great boats that you can hire a cabin in, spend a couple of days traveling between the islands. It'd be wonderful. I'd really enjoy it. The only problem is I've never worked out how to do it because it's so difficult to get the information. That to me is an example of a lack of very granular information that would encourage people to go and visit particular destinations. There's not a lot of very detailed information, especially in English, for people who want to go and travel around different parts of Indonesia. So it's sort of like there's a at a destination level, there's a need for more experienced staff, but also better and more detailed promotion and product development, really focused on customers. And perhaps a little bit of integration between the various government organizations. It's not to say that everything's bad. I think that over the past 10 years, I've seen enormous growth, and I've met some very skilled and experienced people in developing areas of Indonesia. It's just that you need more of those things, more of those people, and that takes time. And perhaps there's a need to focus some sort of spotlight, as is happening with the development of special destinations in Indonesia, but not just on the infrastructure side, but on the soft infrastructure, to make sure that when these major infrastructure projects, such as in Lombok or in Labuan Bajo, happen, we've then got the sophisticated management that we need to make use of them. So thank you, Dina. I hope that was useful for you. How many minutes have I got left?
30 seconds.
30 seconds. Not too bad.
Okay. Thank you, Professor Scott. Really great shared thoughts for us about untapped destinations of Indonesia. So we're going to proceed to our last but not least speakers, of course, Mr. Gary Bowerman from Check-in Asia, Malaysia. Mr. Gary Bowerman is Director of Check-in Asia, an Asia-focused travel consulting and consumer research firm, and founder of Asia Travel Reset. He is an Asia travel analyst for Focusrite and Asia consumer trends analyst for Mintel. He also co-hosts the Southeast Asia Travel Show based in Kuala Lumpur And Gary works across China, Asia Pacific, and globally with MTOs, destinations, hotels, OTAs, management consultancies, insurers, banks, consumer brands, and market research firms. He lived in Shanghai from 2004 until 2010. Previously, he also authored the New Chinese Traveler, Business Opportunities from the Chinese Travel Revolution 2014 Palgrave, and China Travel Market Report from 2021 until 2025. So, Mr. Bowerman, the next 8 minutes is yours.
Thank you very much, Dina. Thank you very much, Reza, for the invitation. Let me share my screen with you. I've got 7 minutes, so strap yourselves in. I'm going to take a slightly different angle on this. I'm just going to bombard you with statistics. I talk around the world. I'm lucky I go to conferences around the world. And as some of our speakers have said before, there is this real Bali challenge about Indonesia, that Bali is seen as Indonesia. Indonesia isn't seen as Bali. So where do the two overlap? So I thought we would start by just looking at Indonesia and what a huge country it actually is. Peter said this, and thank you for setting me up beautifully for that, Peter. It is Southeast Asia's largest country. We know that. Look at everything in brown on that map. That is Indonesia. There's 17,000, more than 17,000, perhaps 18,000 islands in this huge archipelago nation, the world's largest archipelago nation. It's also the world's 14th largest country. Just let that one settle in for a moment. It is Indonesia by some degree, Southeast Asia's largest economy. It is Asia's 5th largest economy. So the biggest are China, India, Japan, South Korea, and Indonesia comes in at number 5. Globally, it's the 13th largest economy. So it sits outside the top 10 for now, but that won't last for long. Indonesia's target is to become the 4th largest economy by 2045. Now, 2045 is what? 22 years away. Seems like a long time, but it won't be. But it's also a very significant year for Indonesia because that will be the 100th anniversary of its independence. So the statistics continue. As I said, it also counts Southeast Asia's largest population, 278 million people around about now, almost 280 million people. That's the world's 4th largest population. Now, with the economy growing at around about 5% per year, and with such a huge population, we're going to see a growth of a very, very sizable middle class over the coming years. And as we've seen elsewhere in the region, China is a very, very good example of this. Once the middle class starts to grow and gain scale, so does the travel industry. Indonesia already has a very big travel industry, but it's going to get a lot bigger. The population is the 4th largest in the world, as I've already said, and it's targeted to reach around about 324 million people by 2045. Now, that brings us to a concept. I just talked about GDP growth and I talked about the economy, but what is called the demographic dividend. On the podcast that I co-host with Hannah Pearson, the Southeast Asia Travel Show, our guest last week was based in Jakarta. He is a hospitality investment consultant, and he talked about the demographic dividend, which lasts probably for this decade, from 2020 through to about 2030. Indonesia is one of the few countries in the world where the working population actually outstrips the dependent population. So the people who are school age or elderly age and don't actually earn a living, the working age in Indonesia through this decade will outstrip that. Now that's very, very unusual in Asia in particular, because we are very, very used to having aging populations. If you think about China, you think about South Korea, you think about Japan, they have aging populations. The situation in Indonesia is very, very different. And that really is generating and will generate a great deal of travel and tourism activity. These figures have already been mentioned by some of our previous esteemed speakers, but I just thought I'd put them in again. 1.4 billion domestic travel trips this year, 1.4 billion. Just think about that number. That's essentially the same as the population of India or China traveling around Indonesia this year. 1.4 billion people, 8.5 million inbound travelers. But Indonesia is really, really looking to expand and make the most of its domestic travel market, and has said that it would like to, in time, earn up to 60 or 70% of total tourism spend from the domestic market. It is also Southeast Asia's largest air aviation market. It accounts for about 29% of total seat capacity in Southeast Asia is from Indonesia. And it's also the fifth most visited country in the region. Now, let's go back a little bit to 2019. 2019 is used across the tourism industry, particularly in Asia, as the benchmark year for the global recovery in future after COVID-19. Now, I'm not sure if that's quite right. And as Peter said, there are a lot of different metrics that we're looking at in travel and tourism right now, but pure physical numbers, statistics still really count. So if you look at the diagram at the bottom, 16.1 million visitors in 2019, that doubled from 2012 through 2019. So you can see that there was real growth generating in inbound travel into Indonesia. Let's bring that up to date right now. So this is the airline seat capacity in Southeast Asia this month, here in June. These are the total seats in the different countries around our region. And you can see from the line in blue, Indonesia is way out front. And that is largely because of the size of its domestic aviation sector, which is enormous. It's so much bigger than anywhere else in the region. But you can see the figure there, 10.46 million airline seats available this month in Indonesia. And that's more than double Malaysia. And it's not far off double of Thailand as well, which is pretty interesting because Thailand is by far the most visited country in our region. If we bring that down a step or two, drill down to the airports themselves, which airports have the most available seats this month in June 2023? And you can see number one is Jakarta, just slightly ahead of Singapore. That's pretty interesting because, Jakarta serves both the domestic and an international market, whereas Singapore, of course, doesn't have any domestic aviation. It's just purely international. And you can see if we go through there, these are some of the main hubs across the region. So you have Singapore, Kuala Lumpur, Bangkok, Suvarnabhumi, we have Manila, we have Saigon, we have Hanoi, we have Don Muang also in Thailand. And then we have two more airports here in Indonesia, Denpasar in Bali, and Makassar. But let's shift away from air travel, because air travel, the 2010s, the last decade, was around the region was about growth in air travel. It was about growth in airports, it was about growth in airlines, and it was about growth in passenger travel. And we saw that across the region from 2010 through to 2019 before the pandemic started. All the curves were upwards. There were a lot of new airlines opening new routes, offering new services, and new airports were being built. The next 20 years will be slightly different because we're going to see huge development in rail travel across Southeast Asia. And Indonesia is actually going to be at the forefront of this. Later this year, perhaps in August, maybe in September, Indonesia will open the first high-speed rail line in Southeast Asia. Now that line is going to run between Jakarta and the third biggest city in Indonesia, Bandung. It's going to, I think, run for about 30 minutes. This line is being built by China. The trains there have that, if you look at the livery on the front of the train, is inspired by the Komodo dragons from Indonesia. And this is the first high-speed rail. So the first train that will run at more than 250 kilometers per hour. It's actually going to run a lot faster than that, perhaps over 300, maybe 360 kilometers per hour. And this is not just an interesting aspect for Indonesia in terms of it will generate a lot of interest, of course. It's going to become a huge tourism attraction.
You have 2 more minutes.
2 more minutes. Okay, thank you very much, Dina. So also attracting tourism and travel around the region is TV, streamed video, and movies. And that's, we've seen the impact from South Korea, the soft power of Korean movies, Korean videos, Korean cosmetics. Soft culture and popular culture really, really impact tourism. Indonesia last year signed a very, very big deal with Netflix to produce a lot more content which focuses on Indonesian culture, cuisine, tourism, destinations, landscapes, and we'll start to see that coming out over the next few years. It's a big, big deal because it really offers Indonesia the opportunity to reach the living rooms or the video screens, the smartphone screens of people around the world. That's a really big development. Indonesia, as we know, actually has a very, very sophisticated and strong online travel booking sector already. You have some of the big names in travel there in our region: Traveloka, Ticket.com, GoTo. These are big names which are facilitating the growth of domestic and international travel through digitized platforms. We're going to see a lot more innovation from all three of those brands as we go forward. TikTok is making a big play for travel distribution across Southeast Asia. But Indonesia is its biggest market. So we're going to see TikTok making a real play for those young Gen Z travelers in Indonesia, and inciting them and encouraging them to share their videos and make more travel trips around the region. So there are a few challenges ahead, and I think most people have, Peter and Noel have already discussed some of these. There's not enough international gateways into Indonesia right now. Need more international flights going beyond Jakarta and going beyond Denpasar. That will happen. I think it will take time, but it's going to really, really rely on the way that Indonesia is promoted in future. We have these 5 priority destinations, and as Noel said, it's just such a huge country. Tourism infrastructure will obviously start to come under pressure as we see more tourists coming into the country. But the rail infrastructure, that could be built out in future. We may see that high-speed railway goes from Bandung to Jakarta and then on to Surabaya. Let's wait and see. Also next year, there's a presidential election. I think Taleb said that, the government has been so focused on promoting tourism in Indonesia. Let's hope that continues when we have a new government after next year. I think, Dina, that brings me in just underneath time. That's my quick statistical run around the country. Thank you very much for your kind appreciation.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gary Bowerban, for enlightening us. You come as the last speaker, but you're really waking us up with this statistic about Indonesia. Thank you so much. So we have heard all of our 10 distinguished speakers talking about this topic. So like I wrote in this chat, there will be 3 questions for a very quick question and answer session. Please put your question in the chat and write to whom your question is directed to. But I already have one question from Miss Ines Setiawan. I hope she is still here. She is asking about, what about inclusions in tourism? Because she said there are so many indigenous communities are destroyed due to the existence of tourism. I think for this question, I would like to hear the opinion from Professor Pitana and from Indonesia. And the other one is from Professor Scott. Prof. Pitana, are you still here?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Can you give your quick answer about this, Prof. Pitana? Your opinion?
I'm not really clear with the question.
She is asking about, what about the inclusions in tourism? Because she said so far, the development of tourism usually is destroying many indigenous communities because of the development.
Well, I keep telling all the friends that we should not use a dichotomic approach in analyzing tourism and culture, tourism and nature, tourism and environment, tourism and heritage, tourism and spirituality, and so forth and so forth. It is better to see the thing in an integrated way, in holistic way, as a system. As we see in Bali, let's say take Ubud or other villages. Who can say that Ubud's culture or Balinese culture in Ubud has been gone? Anyone can say that? Again, there are cases where tourism destroy or invade the culture. But to some extent, and to some example in Bali, even the advent of tourism strengthened the cultural conservation. And I have been saying this for a long, long time, that suppose there is no tourists, who will maintain the dance? Who will maintain the culture, the art, and so forth and so forth. Tourism has become a new market, a new, new pattern for cultural conservation in Bali. And when I say cultural conservation, I talk it in a dynamic way. Don't put cultural conservation in a static way. Dynamic way means the use of culture is also means conservation. Thank you, Budina.
Thank you, Professor Pitana. So, Professor Scott, what is your thought about this question?
Thank you, Budina. Yes, I think it comes back to how we even measure the impact of tourism. So in many countries, for example, in Indonesia, we talk about the economic impact of tourism to the country. But in fact, we really need to think about the economic impact to the destination. So if we start to say, oh, okay, in this destination, we are getting lots of money from tourists, but much of that money goes to people in rich people in Jakarta, then perhaps we might be thinking that we need to change something. So I do think that one of the important measures of performance for tourism in any country is the number of the amount of money that stays in the destination rather than in the country as a whole, and also then the jobs that are provided to local people rather than to anyone. So just jobs. So we need to be a little bit more definitive and exact in understanding who's benefiting from tourism. And of course, we should be trying to encourage the local people to benefit from tourism. The problem is, these people may need training and education, which can take time. But if you are thinking about managing tourism properly, then you'll be thinking about developing human resources, developing people over the longer term. So this is about, I do think that in many destinations, local people miss out, and we can fix it if we have the right, think about the right goals that would do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Scott and Prof. Pitana, for addressing this question. I haven't seen questions posted in the chat, but I'm curious about something. So I apologize, because as a moderator, I also have curiosity. Can I also give questions? I hope it is allowed. Mr. Bowerman, you give so many data about the potential of Indonesia. Okay, and we know one big problem of Indonesia is about the connectivity between islands and how people from abroad reaching Indonesia. And also, I also give this question to Pak Farshal, actually, for the person who's been spent a lot of time in airlines industry. So what is really the obstacle for Indonesia's government to make it happen? The connectivity, and to make the potentials, the real one, not only potential, but the real thing that can be beneficiary for Indonesia tourism. So what do you think, Mr. Bowerman?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Dina. It's a very 2023 question in many ways. If you ask any tourism board or any government in the region right now, everybody will say they don't have enough connectivity. Thailand is doing quite well in tourism this year, but it says it doesn't have enough connectivity. Bali has recovered quite well, but it doesn't have enough connectivity. Here in Malaysia, where I live, there's not enough connectivity. So it is an issue across the region at the moment, and that is largely because of the graduated and the slow recovery that we've had from COVID. We started later than the rest of the world, and we're still catching up. But you're also right in the sense that this was also a pre-pandemic problem, and it's something that the government will need to look at. I think the main problem is that most airlines in the world that come into, and the Indonesian airlines as well, that come into Indonesia want to go into basically two centers. They want to go into Jakarta, to Bali, maybe one or two other cities, but it's very, very difficult to encourage airlines to go into the other cities when they're not sure about the demand. Now, that's not just an issue in Indonesia. That's an issue in every big country across the region. You know, you can ask governments in secondary and third tier cities in India, and they will tell you the same. Go back 10, 15 years, cities in China that weren't the major cities had exactly the same problem. It's a problem of growth. It's a problem of developing, but it basically comes down to, you know, just the usual diplomatic tools that governments, airlines, and the travel industry has to work through. It has to find partnerships. It has to find new solutions, and it has to work with local governments and local airports to make it happen. It won't happen overnight, unfortunately, Dina.
Thank you, Mr. Bowerman, for your answer. Pak Farshal, are you still here? We want to hear from a person who
I am here
is
with
in
you.
Indonesia. Yes. What is your response to this question?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So we are still struggling really to return the capacity back to the pre-pandemic. The main challenge that we have is, I mean, like I said to everyone before, that our industry is not designed to stop. But what happened during the COVID, we are dying. We're, you can say that we are almost in total stop, right? So to return the industry as a whole, we need time to reignite. We have issues with resources. We have issues with pilot shortage. We have issues with aircraft. Not so much about the aircraft, but the logistic behind the aircraft, right? So we have an issue with global supply chain to support the spares and toolings for the aircraft. A lot of key partners within the aviation, like the airports, the airnav, they also under resources at the moment. So we really need time to catch up all to return everything back into place. We have issues with high fuel costs last year. Yeah, the fuel cost in the beginning of 2022 is about 80 cents per liter, and then going up to $1 or even more than $1. So we're looking at 30% increase of fuel. That's some of the challenge that we have in the air travel sector. We are working together with the stakeholder, but we are really confident that we can return the capacity. I'm just talking about Indonesia by end of next year, yeah, or the worst case by 2025. Yeah, at the moment the Bali air travel market is almost there. It's almost back to the pre-level, but Jakarta and other cities, we are still under, very, very slow pace. Yeah, but yes, so please be patient with us. At the moment, the price is also very high, not so much discount in the market. Fares are very high because the capacity, the volume is not there. So we need time to scale and grow. That's my answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Farshal, for your response. So Reza, do we still have time to one more question?
Well, if there is any question, yes.
Yes, from Mr. Daniel Kwan. He is asking Professor Scott and Mr. Simone a quick answer about sharing any experiences from successful countries in developing their soft infrastructure in tourist destination, especially in rural or village tourism. He is asking this because Indonesia is facing such a heterogeneous demographic and social culture. Professor Scott and Mr. Simone, your answer, please.
Dina, one of the things that we've been doing in the Australia Awards Indonesia course over short courses over the past 8 years is to try and do exactly this. You can give people lots of training, and you can give people sit them in classrooms and get them to learn how to to develop a website and stuff. What I find is that people respond best to being given a challenge in an area where they really want to succeed. So if you can find a person, a tourism operator, a village chief, so on, and you say to them, well, what do you really want to do? And you can give them a little bit of mentoring, you'll be amazed at the results that you get. We've had numerous examples over the years of people who have stepped up, who have jumped from and are now running businesses that are extremely successful. In Ternate, for example, there's a women's group there, that the Gamelang Spices restaurant, which has been so successful, they cooked at the G20 in Bali. There's some people in Ambon who are who are playing music for the president of Indonesia. So you can develop these ideas and you can improve people. You just got to do it by capturing or finding those people who want to make a difference and getting them to achieve something, not just talk about it. And if you can do that, then you'll find that tourism will develop extremely well based on individual people rather than government initiatives and things. Don't know if that was.
Thank you,
useful.
professors. Thank you, Professor Scott. So, Mr. Simon, your comments, please, for this question. Are you still here?
And no, Peter had to leave, unfortunately, for some family matters. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, then I think we have reached our conclusion of this discussion. So I think this is a very fruitful discussion we have here. We have listened to 10 distinguished speakers talking about Indonesia, the untapped destination that needs to do so many things to discover the undiscovered and to do so many things to make this tourism in Indonesia beneficial for not only the rich people, but for everyone, for all the stakeholders. And from Indonesia, Indonesia's presenters, we've heard there are so many hidden gems in Indonesia, and how to make it a real thing and not a potential only. We have to start manage, not only promoting. I think that's from me as a conclusion from this very fruitful and beautiful session. So I will hand the session to Reza.
Thank you so much, everybody. It was really great. I want to thank especially our great moderator, Ms. Professor Dina, and our wonderful chairwoman, Eka. She has done a lot, and you can be sure in the coming days and weeks, you will have many announcements from us with many projects and study and researches that we are going to do about Indonesia. So thank you so much. I think, Eka, you still have to say something, maybe.
Thank you, Reza, for the last time. Thank you, Prof. Dina, for your kind cooperation to guide the panel discussion on our international summit leaders and experts, Indonesia Untapped Destination, Discover the Undiscovered. And for all leaders and experts, as Reza said, thanks for sharing, for the insight, for the taking time for 2 hours and 10 minutes with us to come and join this online meeting. And we hope that this event gives new inspiration to all of us. It has been our pleasure to lead and host this event. Me and also Dr. Reza. We are from Institute of Tourism. Look forward to seeing you at the next online and if possible, to offline meeting events. I wish you all the pleasant day, and we hope to see you again. Om Santi Santi Om. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Nice day. Thank you. Pastor.